The woman. The woman.
Hello, good evening and welcome to The Woman. My name is Priscilla Winkbo. Welcome once again to this Thursday evening's edition of the show. Hope you're all doing well out there. Tonight, of course, I'm with my two co-pilots. First up is Miss EK. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. It's good to be here. It's a little colder outside, but I'm warm in here.
That's good. You're welcome. And of course, our Bola is in the house. She's still running the pink theme from last week.
I am indeed a bit of a subtler tone this week, Priscilla. Good evening, everyone. Welcome and looking forward to the debate tonight.
Indeed. For this first part of the show, we are going to be having a conversation across with Nigeria. You know that Anambra will be going to the polls in a matter of days. Anambra State is a state in the eastern part of Nigeria. They're going to the polls in a matter of days to choose, will it be a new governor or will it be a continuation of what is in place already? And so tonight we have the privilege of speaking with one of the female deputy governorship contestants. In Anambra this year, there are many, many political parties that are running. It's great to see that we have 8 women running for governorship, and we have, I think, 4 that are also going for the position of deputy governors. And so tonight we're going to be speaking with the PDP deputy governorship aspirant, the candidate for PDP, and her name is Lady Chidi Alexander Oyemelichi. So let's take that phone call and let's hear what they have to offer to the people of Anambra should they win. Okay. All right, we appear to be having a technical problem, so I'm going to move on swiftly for the rest of the show. Ladies, so we're not able to take that phone call at this present moment, but it's been an interesting week, has it not, as usual? Mm-hmm. You know, last week we were talking about the whole sexual assault situation that has been happening, and here we are this week. Today, it hasn't quite gone away.
It's still erupting.
It's still erupting somehow. But
last week there was a humble that Kevin Spacey may have or may not have at the Vic, and indeed this week
20 people come forward in England alone,
absolutely.
In London.
Absolutely, and that's just in a space of a few days.
Yeah.
And the Vic Theatre denied it completely last week, and now they're having to accept that.
Apologise.
Yeah, they do need to offer their apologies.
But I wonder if apologies is enough. It's so easy to apologise after the fact, isn't it? But I mean, you know, I usually think that apology means I'm sorry, I will never do it again. But this is something that he's done 20 times and more. And so when do you
and the damage is done, isn't it? The damage
psychological and emotional damage is done. I know there's also an actress from is it The Royals who's come forward as well, and I think the director's been suspended this week as well because of the sex pest claims that have come forward from that show as well, and I believe even from One Tree Hill, which he previously directed. So it's just evolving everywhere, you know, and it's good to know that the companies are taking it a bit more seriously. They are suspending people. Well, they don't have a choice. And the women are coming forward saying they didn't speak out because they did not feel they had a voice. And even the people that were meant to be protecting them were actually just covering up, and they knew about it.
Well, that's not unusual. I mean, sorry, you were going to...
No, go ahead.
Because, I mean, this is very similar to... Well, it's not similar, but if you see what I mean, with the children. And the things that were hidden.
Rolf Harris again.
We've had the Rolf Harris.
Exactly.
Well, it's been overturned, one of his convictions.
Exactly. I mean, there were
1
so
out of
many
12.
of the, you know, with the Jimmy Savile situation.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were hidden by the authorities themselves, who were so sort of, I don't know, taken by the fact that he was an important personality.
But you know, from our show last week, I had a conversation with a pastor who was watching.
Yeah.
And he told me a story of a situation where a man was raped. And he said when the man initially told him that he was raped, he found it he just thought that just sounded so odd, you know.
Raped by a
man or a
female or
woman?
man?
Raped by a woman. So he thought, how was that possible? Just like, you know, we discussed it, and, you know, just didn't seem to have absorbed it with the same sort of seriousness as, you know, as we all probably would. And then he said when he spoke with the lady, she confirmed that indeed it did happen. But, you know, just like we were saying last week, he couldn't call in because, you know, as usual, men, how do we put this story across? And how are people going to take us seriously? And according to him, that's what he has found across.
But it's not even the seriousness of it. It's the fact that people don't think that a woman can rape a man, because they always see it as an action that goes the other way.
If it's a woman, I think it's seduction. I think that's how people see it. That's how they'll perceive it, that the woman has seduced the man. Whereas if it's the other way round, it's tarnished as rape. And I think we do need that balance, definitely.
It's a different thing though, isn't it? Because seduction doesn't involve violence, whereas rape tends to, you know, because it's forceful. Yeah. So I would imagine that if a woman raped a man, it would be equally as forceful. It wouldn't just be seduced, because if you seduce somebody...
Not necessarily, it's just lack of consent. So you find that there are some women that may not have been forcefully held down, as it were, but they haven't consented, or they feel that they've said no and their voice hasn't been heard. And maybe that was the situation with this man. He was saying no and she was not listening, you know, to his pleas.
You know, you'd think that he wouldn't be able to respond physically to enable such a place, and that she would be in a situation that she would be just as damaged as he is physically, because the effort would be just a bit too much. But there again, maybe, I mean, having not been in that situation, we can't really say, you know.
It would be interesting to have heard from men, actually.
It would have been, to really hear their side of the story, and, you know, their experiences, their thoughts as well on, you know, this
non-stop. That's not going to go away sometime soon.
So we can always revisit.
We will always revisit. Because I think that it is going to perpetuate. There's going to be more scandals that are going to come out. I mean, somebody was saying to me, and I don't know how true it is, that one of the presidents was actually involved as well. Many years ago, somebody had said that they, you know, touched them inappropriately during one of the
which president? Which country?
America.
But we know of one famous such situation.
No, that's not the latest.
Not that one.
No, this is a few. But because I'm not sure.
Not the famous one.
Not the famous
one.
Okay. But they're all famous.
No, not the famous incident. No, the famous incident. Have you forgotten? I did not have any relations with that woman.
That's another one.
Oh, not those, you know, okay. I thought it was that one. No. Okay. But there's a very interesting story at the moment buzzing in the news. I think we're all shocked by it. It's fair to say that the planet just sort of woke up and thinking, you know, did a coup happen in Zimbabwe? President Mugabe, are you leaving? Everybody's thinking, how did this happen? What were your thoughts, Ms. Ike, when you saw this happening?
I mean, on the basis that I wouldn't have wanted his wife to take over, because it's like something worse is going to take place in that country.
Really?
I'm slightly in favour of it, but I'm not liking the information that I'm receiving that there are certain other countries that are involved in the Western front. And I'm just thinking, how long are these people going to stay in government? How long are they going to turn it around so that they can go back to normal governance in that country? That's what I'm interested in. And that's what I would be disappointed to see them just staying there. But
as for the involvement, the involvement's always been there. It's not today, you know. If it is alleged, it's a possibility that, you know. So, what did you think?
Well, I was shocked as well. I mean, he's been in government forever, since before I was born, at least.
Over 30 years, 37, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
shorter.
Excuse me, Miss A, as I was saying before I was born.
We'll maintain that.
Yes,
I'm on your side.
That.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think at his age now, really, it's time to hand over the baton.
At 91, right?
Forcefully, if it has to be. But I just pray it's peaceful. Yeah. And I just continue to pray for the country that it's peaceful.
Somebody put forward, I'm so sorry to cut you, somebody put forward the idea that they should have allowed him as an icon of his country to finish his term properly.
What if he lives for another 10 years?
I really don't know.
I remember back in, I think it was 2008, I was speaking to one of my Zimbabwean friends. And I remember then, I think they were going to the polls again. And she was like, Robert Mugabe. And I said, listen, let me tell you something, sweetheart. The only way Zimbabwe is going to get rid of Mugabe, it's either in a box or a coup. It's either you accept that now,
Yes.
or you just sort of go with the flow. And she sort of looked at me with that shock on her face, like, excuse me? And I thought, well, we can just watch. He's done over 20 years and he has no plans whatsoever. And here we are today,
his health still seems to be
I'm just
amazed that the people didn't have the strength to get rid of him in the polls.
I don't think
they weren't gaining
how do you know that they even had the possibility, that there was a possibility for them to, as you said, get rid of him in the polls?
I think there are two things at play. There is the fact that some Zimbabweans actually do see him as their hero, because they believe that he stood for them. Yeah, there is that aspect, and I think there's also the aspect where going to the polls is probably predetermined before people actually
pointless. Is it really worth standing in line
get there
whole day to go to the polls?
Well, whatever happens, we hope that Zimbabwe will be better for this incident. And that he will, I think, he's quite willing, I think, because I think even he would not have wanted the bedroom coup that was about to take place to continue, because it would appear that, she has some kind of hook on him, enough to be able to get him to sack the deputy and then to, put herself forward.
He's an old man, and it doesn't mean that he's got all his faculties in working order. Yes, and she's a younger woman. You don't know whether he was suffering from, domestic abuse in the home, to try and get him to do certain things. You don't know what was happening in his home.
That's why I said
bedroom. I mean, exactly. Well, that's a place that we, that bedroom again. I was going to say what's going on there, but it was about time that something did happen to move things along. And I think it's not just going to be something that Zimbabwe is going to hopefully benefit from, but I think the whole of Africa will benefit from it too. Because it's an indirect message that, you know what, we're not all standing for things, but it's just a pity that it went through the military and not through the people.
Well, what can I say? We wish Zimbabwe all the best, and we do hope that it will be a peaceful transition and that a better democratically elected leader will arise out of this. Well, on that note, we are going to go on a short break, but when we come back, we have with us, as we did say last week on the show, that we'll be discussing the racial disparity audit, that if you recall, the Prime Minister had recently requested for this report, and the result of the report was out recently, and it showed, that indeed, what people of African and Caribbean origin within the UK have been saying all along, that they're suffering racism. This report more or less confirmed it and gave, figures as to what's happening where and how. And so when we come back from the break, we're going to discuss some of the content of that report, focusing more on the criminal justice system and especially our young men who are continually affected by knife and gun crime. And once again, it's been said that the figure has gone up by 26%. And here to discuss all of that with us is the chair of the Metropolitan Police Black Police Association, Ms. Janet Hill. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. See you in a moment.
The woman. The woman. The woman.
Every culture and society has its differences. Yes, we are different, but united in one nation. Yes, you can advise for something positive today. Yes, advisors, you should use your megabytes of data wisely for better living and nation. Yes, for the record, in 2 years, there's an urgent need for credible leaders. Yes, you should ensure that. Join the evolution by visiting the website www.yesnigeria.net.
Do you have what it takes to win the Expression Debates Challenge designed to mark 2017 International Anti-Corruption Day? 32 undergraduate teams, 64 voices, 1 platform, 1 mic. Star prizes: first prize 500,000 naira, second prize 300,000 naira, third prize 200,000 naira. Register today and stand a chance to be selected for the regional auditions in Lagos and Abuja in November and the grand finale on December 9th, 2017. The grand finale shall be aired on television platforms. So, are you ready to be the Expression Debates 2017 champions? For participation information and application forms, visit www.youngstarsfoundation.org/The Expression Debates or call 070-3553-5876. Terms and conditions apply. Application closes midnight, October 15, 2017. The Expression Debates, powered by Young Stars Foundation.
The woman.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. As I was just saying on the break there, we're going to be looking at the racial disparity report that the PM had recently released. And in this report, they looked at certain areas. They looked at the community, looked at education, health, public sector workers, looked at criminal justice system, crime and policing, housing, labor market. These were all the areas that were looked at within our society, and especially how we as people of African and Caribbean descent are faring. Are we faring good? Are we feeling racism towards us? We would like to hear from you if you've had any experience in any of these areas that you would best describe as racism, or that was any action that was taken towards you because of the color of your skin. Our number, as you know, is 0208-808-0693. And our guest is here with us in the studio. As I said, she is the chair of the Metropolitan Police Black Police Association. Hi, Miss Janet Hill.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm well, thank you.
Welcome. I've been chasing you forever.
Yeah. It's been a while.
It's nice to have you on the show. And as I mentioned there, we're looking at this racial disparity report. When you first heard about this report, what were your thoughts?
To be fair, it doesn't tell us anything that we don't already know.
We, as in we.
As in black people. It does highlight disproportionality across all sectors. But again, we already know this because it's our lived experience around our engagement with education, social services, policing. My only, I guess, hope is that alongside the report, that there is a robust action plan that actually allows for those statistics that are mentioned in there to change.
I hope so too. I think one of the main things we're looking at tonight, we're focusing on the criminal justice system. And in focusing on that, we're looking at, because once again, the figures are telling us this year that knife and gun crime with our young people is up once again by 26%, the highest in 6 years. Now that's very worrying. And we're trying to look at that in conjunction with the criminal justice system
Sure.
and with this report. So, you know, though there are so many different statistics that suggest why this has gone up, but one of the main areas, it's about the cuts that have been happening. Do you think that we do enough to deal with the problems with our young people before they get to the point of carrying knives and guns in the community?
You know, I think we could do more. I think there can be much more done within the communities, because this is our problem. These are our young people.
That's right.
And, you know, regardless of the cuts, you know, from a community perspective, there is a lot more that we can do as, you know, families, as, you know, church groups, religious groups, schools. There is so much more people that can be involved in trying to address this issue.
I mean, one of the statistics about the stop and search is obviously can be quite a controversial subject within the black community, and young black boys being stopped and searched. But actually, the figures have actually decreased since 2010, I believe, and 2015 to 16 saw a drop, and I think that might also be due to resources or a different approach. But actually, I've been hearing earlier this year that even people from the black community are coming forward and saying, well, if this is an issue and knife crime is increasing, maybe we need to revert back to increasing stop and searches. I don't know what your view is on that, and whether you've come across the community groups that have been expressing those views.
Yeah, I have heard that. But again, if we look back in time at 2008, 2009, where we had a similar issue around knife crime in London and Young, we had stop and search at its peak.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the records, you know, for how long stop and search has been going, it was at its peak then, but it didn't actually infiltrate the issues that we were experiencing then.
Yeah.
So for me, stop and search does have a part to play, but it's not the be-all and end-all to solve this problem. But there should be a sequence of measures, as I said, from all of the agencies mentioned in that report that actually looks to deal with this problem. And the stop and search aspect does have its part to play, but it's not going to solve what we're saying, you know, young men walking with knives. It's not going to solve that problem.
I mean, one of the things that is happening in homes is that just as people, or the youngsters, they say, leave their home and put on their shoes, the next thing that they will pick up is a knife, and they will go out of the door with the knife in hand for, in quote, protection. Parents are even putting the knife in the hands of the child.
I've not heard that.
I have heard that has happened, or you know, it was a case where you know, mother said, well, "Take the knife, man, because it's going to protect you, and I don't want a dead child." I mean, but that's the extreme to which it has happened. So really, you know, you mentioned about, and one of the reports is about community. How do we start to do that community? Because really, you know, can the police come into it, as in the black police force? What are you as a group doing? So, because you're president of this group, how have you looked at it? So for us,
from our perspective, it's about distraction. So you know, we talk about schooling as one aspect, but there's an element between you know home and school, and then from school to home, where actually young people probably need to be engaged somehow, which is distracting them from you know what it is that we're saying are the issues for them. So one of the things that we do is we run a project which we are spreading across the boroughs of London, which is to do with football, and it's called Kick Off at 3.
Okay.
And this is a programme for young people to involve you know themselves in football, so they can get a club together or a team together and go out and play other teams from other areas, and at the end of it there is a prize by way of, you know, they have an award ceremony, and there is something that is distracting them from, you know, the issues that young people are facing.
Kick Off at 3, is that from 3 p.m. in the afternoon?
No, it's just the name of...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just the name of... Yeah,
Can I quickly come in there and say that one of the things that is happening, and we're blaming the situation that we're seeing, is the underspend on community centres, community functions that used to, you know, in the old days you'd go to the the local club down the road,
youth club.
or during the school times, you know, there was a play school, because I used to do those kind of things and undertake them as a play leader, I was called then. So how are you funding this? Because you're saying it as if to say there's suddenly this money. Is it something that you're raising personally from the you know, the federation, or how is it being done?
Basically, we are, you know, hat in hand, asking for the resources, you know, because there are people out there that will give you, you know, so we've done the tournament at Crystal Palace Sports Centre, and that didn't cost us anything, but we asked if we could use it. And it's about utilising resources where, you know, and you just ask people, and people will, you know, give what they have, not necessarily money, but, you know, resources. They might give us balls. You know, it takes referees. So they give their time free to come along and referee the game.
That's
so
good.
That's the sort of
But
thing
you know,
we're doing.
usually in things like this, it's the people that would be good anyway that will turn up.
We've got a cross section, is what I'll say. We've got a cross section of young people. You know, I say infiltrated. We've managed to get into communities that wouldn't necessarily have that engagement with policing, but through football.
I was going to say, how are you finding these young people within the community? Are you putting adverts out? Are you going to, you know, maybe churches or, you know, those types of settings? How are you finding them?
So we have got quite a strong social media campaign on Twitter and on Facebook, which is raising awareness and basically getting young people involved. We're using sort of resources from within policing. So we're getting, you know, local neighbourhood officers to get involved, schools officers to get involved, and they're helping to promote it in their areas of business, which is bringing these young people together.
Yeah.
Is it, sorry, are you finding the children at the stage when they haven't entered into some of these criminal activities? Because I think once they've already gone past that mark, it's so difficult to reel them back in.
It is, and it is a cross-section. So, you know, it's not to highlight a particular young person because he has been in contact with the criminal justice system, but it's actually to engage them so that, you know, they have a future to look forward to, regardless of their, you know, background. So we don't necessarily highlight that, and it is for young people coming together. And to be honest, we don't know whether young people have or not, but I would say it would be a cross-section.
But then, you know, would you say that the cuts that the police are experiencing, because the police force has also taken quite a beating, you know, in the number of police officers we have on the street and so on, would you say that those cuts are also having an impact on what's happening in the streets?
I think, you know, the main purpose for policing is to keep Londoners safe.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know whether that is actually the case. I don't have any current stats on whether that is the case. But I know the main drive from the mayor's perspective is that he wants to keep London safe. And, you know, I think, you know, policing and, you know, MOPAC, the mayor's office, will do, you know, everything within their power in order for that to happen.
One of the things that this report did throw up, which I thought was interesting, was that in Scotland, for instance, they're at their lowest, in 2014-15, they had their lowest rate in 31 years. And I just wondered, have you guys looked into what did Scotland do differently that reduced that? Were there any things that, you know, could be maybe taken on board here in the UK, well, in England, I suppose, yeah.
I know that there is a task force set up to deal with the knife crime aspect. I'm hoping that they would have looked at best practice around, you know, where there is low rates but similar demographics in order to tackle the problem. It seems silly that you wouldn't look to somewhere like Scotland where they've had this reduction in order to try and address the issues down in London.
You know, one of the things that bothers me, I always wonder, how do these Scandinavian countries manage to build the most beautiful prisons you could possibly imagine, very comfortable prisons? Some of them look like a holiday destination, and they have no prisoners to take up these, you know, prison spaces. And I often wonder, what is it that they do in their countries that prevent high level of criminality, or criminality that would eventually lead to a sentence? perhaps is there something that, you know, could be learned or taken on board from these Scandinavian countries? Because, you know, some of them are selling off. There is a hotel currently in the Docklands area, right opposite the Crown Plaza Hotel, that has been turned into a hotel. It was once built for a prison, but couldn't be used for, you know, the prison. So it's now been brought. It was actually brought here in that original format from Holland, and it's standing there as a hotel, as a cheap hotel that can be, you know, utilized. And I just wonder, what is it that they are doing over there that they're now having to ship up their prisons?
Again, it's always worth looking into around sort of like the areas where there's, you know, best practice in the, you know, for these things. So I would agree, you know, wherever we can get the help here in the UK about keeping, you know, people safe, keeping London safe, keeping young people safe, then we should do it, whatever that costs.
We have a caller. Bear with me just a second, Ms. Ike. We'll come to you in a minute. We have Daniel on the line. Hi, Daniel. Daniel? Is our caller still on the line? Daniel, if you can hear me.
Hello?
Hi. Hi, welcome to the show, Daniel. Where are you calling from tonight?
I'm calling from London. Is that Priscilla?
It is Priscilla indeed.
Wow.
What is your question?
What is my question? Well, I mean, it's good to see you back after a long time from our program.
Well, you know, sometimes a break is good.
Why did you run away from us? Anyway, look, your program is wonderful.
Thank you.
It's good to see you back on the screen because it's been quite a long time.
I appreciate that. Do you have a question? Do you have a contribution to the subject matter we're discussing, or an experience you would like to share, sir?
No. You
just wanted to welcome me.
Oh,
thank you.
I'm watching the program right now. I like it. I'm the tall black guy you met in one of those parties many years ago.
Okay. All right, so
I wish you well with this new program, okay?
We're here every Thursday at 9 p.m., so hopefully you'll tune in next week. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. That was kind. We're going to go on a short break. When we come back, we're going to continue with our conversation. Our number is 028-808-0693. We would like to hear your contributions to the subject matter that we're discussing. Thank you. We're back in a moment.
The woman. The woman.
Every culture and society has its differences. Yes, we are different, but united in one nation. Yes, you can advise for something positive today. Yes, advisors, you should use your megabytes of data wisely for better living and nation. Yes, for the record, in 2 years, there's an urgent need for credible leaders. Yes, you should ensure that. Join the evolution by visiting the website www.yesnigeria.net.
Bavidi Luxury Hotel, the newest home away from home in the Nigerian hospitality industry. 10 minutes only from the local and international airports. It's the perfect spot for your relaxation whenever you are in Lagos. 24-hour non-stop electricity, cozy and colorful rooms, Wi-Fi internet connection, and flat screen cable television. Bavidi Luxury Hotel. Our exquisite restaurant and full bar are simply second to none in taste and style. Bavidi Luxury Hotel. We are located at the posh serene neighborhood in the Keja Business District. Your satisfaction is our first concern, so we train our staff to be professional and personable. Bavidi Luxury Hotel, number 20 Moshood Abiola Crescent, Ikeja, Lagos. Telephone +234 1291 7929 +234 708 287 7512. Bavidi Luxury Hotel, the new home away from home.
The woman.
Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back. Our number is 028-808-0693. You may have known a young person that has either experienced knife and gun crime, maybe they've been stabbed. Perhaps you know a parent that had lost a child as a result of, you know, this unfortunate situation that we find so heavily in our community. It would be great to hear from you. What do you think the government can do to improve on this situation within our community? Do you have any suggestions? That's what we would like to hear about. Ms. Ika, you were saying something just before we went on a break there.
Yeah, what I wanted to pick up on, because we were looking at the way in which it seems so much better.
The Scandinavian countries, yeah, their prisons are empty and they have nice prisons.
It's like, what are we doing wrong, or what's happening? And I can only put a suggestion that one of the things that we're not doing well is the way in which we're actually handling our black children are being handled in school.
Okay.
And that is coming out of what we had another guest some time ago who raised the issue of school to prison pipeline. And this comes out of exclusions and the fact that so many of our children are actually being excluded from school. And once you exclude the child, one of the things that happens is they're actually taken out of school and put into, I mean, I've had experience of seeing some of these things, going into schools that are really not the environment in which they should be.
Referral units,
Exactly.
units, they mix with other children that are from complex backgrounds, criminal backgrounds and so on. It's so difficult to get back into mainstream
what they
school.
should do is keep them in school and run it alongside.
It starts with unconscious bias, doesn't it?
Oh, that,
Well, yes.
Where the slightest thing that the child does is all, you know.
Exactly.
But we have a caller. Let's hear what Emmanuel has to say. Hi, Emmanuel.
Yeah, hi. I can barely hear you, but I think I can struggle through.
Go ahead.
My question is, how do you secure the safety of any community if the police are, you know, really taking hits in terms of numbers? Because in terms of policing, you do need bodies on the street. So you can only cut, you know, you can only cut those close to the bone before you have a redundant force. So that it's a force by name, but you can't secure the streets because you don't have the numbers.
Okay.
And that's really what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Perhaps you can help us with that. He's saying, you know, when the numbers are down, surely it's going to, as I said earlier, affect the community. How do we maintain safety?
And again, I guess it's about streamlining your resources. It's looking at, you know, where the crime patterns are occurring and directing your resources to be effective in those areas. And that is done on a daily basis in policing, looking at crime trends and, you know, where crime is happening and where they need to direct the resources. And I guess that will continue, which will hopefully, and I guess some of the crime types are changing too. There's more sort of like online fraud, which doesn't necessarily, you know, people want to feel safe when they're doing their shopping on the internet and all of that. So, you know, again, it's being able to sort of like look at the bigger picture and direct your resources to wherever the crime trends tell you that they need to be.
But will the resources be directed accordingly? Because, you know, you do hear sometimes that, well, if it's not affecting us and it's just affecting that community, then do we really need to pump the resources into a community that doesn't impact us? You know, knife crime or gun crime isn't really affecting certain communities.
No, it does.
So
it affects,
will they do anything
it's
about
right
it?
across all the communities. But I think there is so much more focus on the disproportionately reported, I think. Am I right?
Yeah,
Janet?
and I think the trust and confidence aspect of African, Caribbean people not necessarily wanting to report crime and deal with it within their own sort of like groups.
Circles.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Even within the communities and the churches sometimes they might try and deal with it
because of the sort of trust and confidence issues around policing and community.
But there's a disparity in the way in which there is a belief, and this has come out of this report, that the majority of crimes are committed by the black man. You know, and so you can understand when you're telling me that, or you're telling us that they will send resources out to the various things, then that means that there's a pressure on the black man within this environment. You know, and there's a sort of like an extra eye on him, which is unfair.
Again,
and inappropriate, you know, it's from a sort of a force that is already being, you know, marked out as being institutionally racist.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the disproportionality within the figures, it does raise the eyebrow that, you know, if you take, you know, a man between the age of 16 and 24, that they're more likely to be victims of crime, they're more likely to be suspects in crimes, they're more likely to get, you know, longer prison sentence around crimes that are committed, that there is a mass of disproportionality. And that's why I say that I would like to see an action plan that actually deals with, because we know this, we feel this, we live this, that there's an action plan that goes along with this report that actually deals with how we're going to deal with the disproportionality.
You know, the thing that was very interesting, and I found a figure that said that 45% of the gun crime and the knife crime, was it the knife crime? I do apologise if I've got this, but it was quite high, were being done by black women. Are you aware of that?
No, I've not read that.
That's not for the streets. Is that not within domestic violence? But, you know, Janet, speaking of the police force, this is one of the areas where racism has been so widely reported. It is rife. And it is...
Might be a slight exaggeration.
Okay. A slight exaggeration in 2017.
That's the perception.
That's the understanding and perception. Tell us a little bit about, you know, some of the things that, you know, the Black Police Association have had to deal with, the experiences that, you know, is within the force, the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, so I guess in most recent years, we will say, like 2014 was Carol Howard, black female police officer, in one of the specialist units who was subject to discrimination, which, you know, was sort of like international news, let alone sort of like local news, where, you know, the organisation have taken on board the recommendations and even to a degree have
Pause
introduced...
For a second. Organisation, what organisation?
So the policing. So
oh, okay.
Policing. So they have introduced measures, but also taken on board the recommendations from the Employment Tribunal.
Okay.
They've had the EHRC do a report. They've had ACAS work alongside them in order to deal with some of the issues, in fact, all of the issues that have come out of the Carol Howard report and the recommendations there. So we're talking 3 years on. Sometimes these things do take a while to embed.
Yeah.
Whereas you can see the sort of shift change that they're looking to make, that doesn't always translate itself, you know, beyond the fact that, you know, they've got those things in place and now we need to see them really take effect and for people to have the confidence to report if they're being, because, you know, that's still a big issue.
It is.
To report.
And the report also states it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, and people fear being victimised.
Yes.
There are a number of issues, but there are, I guess, measures in place to look at that. There's a new discrimination unit that actually just deals with those issues that people are saying they've been discriminated against. So it's almost like they're getting special treatment.
That sounds nice. The discrimination unit, who heads it? Who is within it?
Right, so now you're really going to test my knowledge. You're really going to test my knowledge. So from the very highest level, and I can't remember who's for, and I'm going to be sort of slapped on the wrist for not remembering, but on a more micro level, so a more sort of visible level to me, we have a DCI, black female, who's sort of like day-to-day running of the unit, and then underneath her we have male Asian DI, and then we've got a transferee or a secondee from the Home Office, who's a black male, who again is part of, you know, looking at the workings of that unit, which is helpful in regards to sort of making sure that
it's certainly helpful to have someone external, I suppose, to see the balance
Yeah.
as well and have an objective pair of eyes.
Absolutely.
But in terms of the the discrimination within the police force. I think that's a running theme through most organisations. And why does it have to get to the point where we're at employment tribunal status and we're having to look at the recommendations from the highest level before there's any impetus to make any change? And like you said, I do hope that some actions will come out of this report, because we've seen reviews, we've had the Parker review, the McGregor review, but what action is going to be taken once this has come out? And I hope that it's just not going to fade away, and that actually all of these organisations represented, all of these sectors will take it on board. And it's welcoming to hear that the police are actually making some positive moves and positive action towards policing, and I understand that they're doing a lot of positive recruitment at the moment as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're always looking at ways, and in particular in the Met, to do things differently, to sort of like, you know, really broaden the sort of thinking around how we can, you know, get young people, get more African Asian heritage people, minorities into the organisation. So there are a number of recruitment campaigns. More recently, they had a language campaign for constables. They're also looking currently for direct entry detectives. So again, some of the research they did was like demonstrating that you know black women in particular don't necessarily want to be in uniform. They just want to come in and do the sort of Luther-style investigation and, you know, take all the credit.
Are you interested in becoming a Luther?
So, you know, and so that's a really good sort of like entry program. They're doing direct entry at inspector. They're doing direct entry at superintendent. And again, the Met is leading on a lot of these recruitment campaigns. And, you know, they're being successful. I mean, there is an attrition rate, which with all things there will be. People will fall off by the by. But as a whole, we're not doing bad at all.
So you would say that we are getting it right on race? Because I know that many years ago when you were interviewed about this, you said that if you can get it right on race, you can get it right on gender, and that you were too busy being visible. Do you still feel very visible in the police force? Do you feel that the police themselves are confident of where they are? Because being that we've just come out of Black History Month, one of the films that I saw was the introduction of black policemen, and they weren't proper policemen at that time. And the reactions of their white counterparts, or the white people in the public. I'm using that terminology because that's the terminology at that time. And they were actually not very pleased, in some cases, to being supervised, monitored, policed by these black people that, are they qualified? Can they do the job? Do you still encounter that today?
I guess the label that goes along with being black in policing is the BME one. So you've got BME, black minority ethnic, you've got black and Asian minority. That label for me doesn't really allow for policing to get it right, because they're not dealing with the issues. So you talked about gender and you talked about being black. So gender around recruitment and progression within policing is doing really, really well. We are, working really well at getting women into policing and staying and progressing. In line with that, you'd expect to see black women doing equally as well, and we don't see that. And that for me is an issue.
Time is running out, and we've got a caller that's been holding. Let me quickly take Yinka before we are told to end the show. Hi, Yinka.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for your patience. Welcome. What would you like to share with us tonight?
Because of your time, let me quickly ask these three good questions.
Please.
One, when we are talking about equality and diversity, what is the percentage of black minority that's supposed to be in the police force? Can the chairperson let us know?
That is.
And how many are there at the moment? What is the percentage of them at the moment? Second, about the stigmatization, calling every black minority criminal. Why are they now calling us to come and join the police force when they've already labeled us that we are all criminals? Why does the government want us to join the police force?
And number three?
Number three, as the chairperson of this organization, Can you tell us what are your facts about the equality gender between male and female police officers that are black minorities? Because I've never come across one in my life.
Okay, just your number 3. You said
female police officer that is black.
Your number 3.
That is the top question.
Your number 3 question, I didn't quite get that. Did we all get it?
That said, the chairperson, the woman should tell us the gender equality between a male and female police officer of the black minority.
All right. How many black women are in the force is what you want to know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what are the numbers, the percentage?
Okay. Thank you very much. I think question 1 and 3 are quite similar, but I think 3 is about gender. As a number 1, he wanted to know the percentage of black people in the police force. Number 2, why, if we were stigmatized, why are you asking us to join the forces? Number 3, the percentage of women, I would imagine, in the force. Our time is fast running out.
Okay, so the current percentage is around 12%.
Okay.
Which is a massive gap in relation to the community. So we've got a community of like 40% and rising, and we've got a police service that only represents 12%. So that gap in the middle is something that the Met are focusing on and trying to recruit. So on to the second question about the recruitment. That is the reason why we need to reflect our communities. We need the cultural competencies that we have in order, the languages that we speak, the cultures, just the understanding, you know, the fact that if I'm talking and flowing my hands, that actually that is not a threat to me.
No,
it's just the way we do things. And for the women in policing, so in the Met, I think currently there's about 8,500 around that marker. And of that, under 1,000, so we're talking about 900 plus, are from
the African Caribbean background
or a minority group. Yeah, exactly.
The funny thing is that back in the 80s, I actually wanted to join the police force. I got the forms and everything. We thought we would be in the
You could be a DCI.
You could just do direct entry. I've been thinking about it myself.
Yeah, I'll be applying next
direct entry.
Let me film this.
Go for it. Well, what can I say? We're, literally at the end of the show, as our crew is telling us to round up. But, Janet, it's been so good having you. Thank you. And I hope that we can have you back again, because as you can see, there is so much more. I did my PhD research to lots of figures I wanted to share with you.
There's too much to talk about.
Ms. Ika, your last word.
Oh my goodness. I'm just saying, I think we should come back and do this again, because there is just so much more. But within this audit report, there are no recommendations, and I think that it's very important that we get involved in making those recommendations, creating those action plans, and not just action plans, things that can actually go ahead.
Yes.
That's right.
I agree. To make it work.
Yeah, I echo your words, absolutely. And we need to really look at resources as well, because it's not just resources within the police force, it's a public sector, education, housing, it's all combined.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, to Yinka, Emmanuel, and Daniel, thank you very much for your contributions. And for those of you who didn't quite call in, thank you for tuning in anyway. We will be back here next week, and we are going to look at other areas within this report. You can actually download a copy of this at .gov.uk and go through it so that you can join in the conversation come next week. Once again, Ms. Janet Hill, thank you for being here. And from us here on the panel, we shall see you next week. And to our crew in the studio, we want to say thank you very much for always being here every week. Without you, we couldn't be aired. So take care, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Good night.
The woman. The woman. The woman.